My name is Katie Burchfield, and I just recently graduated from Texas A&M's College of Veterinary Medicine. But more importantly, I am a 2015 graduate of an undergraduate degree in poultry science. So that's why they asked me to talk today a little bit about how poultry science helped get me into vet school and kind of shape the career path that I'm going down now. So let's get started. I'm kind of going to go through today why I'm happy that I chose poultry science and kind of the pros of going poultry science to get into vet school. The actual process of getting in, give you a few tips about that. And then we'll talk a little bit about vet school. That's always ever changing and everyone's experience is different in that, but something I can definitely give you a little bit of insight. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about actually being a poultry veterinarian, which is something that I didn't know a lot about when I joined poultry science as an undergrad. I did it mostly just kind of stand out and make my application look a little different. But then I got bit by the bug and definitely am full in a poultry veterinarian now. So the pros of going poultry science, I think one of the big ones is the opportunities for leadership and volunteering. So as you may know or may not know, the poultry science department is relatively small compared to some of the other majors that are commonly paths to vet school. So I think the smallness of the department allows for more opportunities for leaderships. There's different committees and groups within the department that do different kind of leadership roles, whether that's outreach or recruiting, industry kind of things. So just there's tons of opportunities for that, ways to be on committees, ways to be president or vice president or secretary of organizations. And those are definitely all good things to make you a good person, but then also help with your vet school application, and something that's really going to be important to be competitive to get in. My second reason is that it's super hands-on. So unlike some of the formal sciences like biology or biomedical science or something like that, there's spent less time on the formal sciences. Of course, you have to meet the minimum requirements to get into vet school, but most of the poultry classes have a lab attached to them where you're actually getting hands-on with birds, feeding birds, doing necropsies, learning how to bleed them, those kind of things. And then there's also stuff on the processing side where you make ice cream and cake, and who's going to say no to that? So being more well-rounded from a hands-on perspective too, I believe, is really helpful thing about poultry science and why I'm glad I chose to do that. Another big one that they may have talked about in other presentations is the scholarship opportunities. So Texas A&M is very lucky that the industry and alumni of poultry science give back a ton to the students. And I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's fairly common for students to get scholarships from poultry science. It's no secret that vet school is very expensive. So the less debt that you can have and the more scholarships that you can get as an undergrad, the better off you'll be. I know that I am a product of that, and I'm very happy for all the opportunities as far as scholarships that the industry and poultry science gave me. Another one that I've mentioned kind of before is standing out on your application. That's probably one of the reasons I chose poultry science. I had a little bit of background in poultry, so I knew enough about it to feel kind of comfortable, but then also wanted my vet school application to look different than the person sitting beside me. That's one big thing about getting into vet school. There'll be several hundred applicants and only about 130 to 140 seats in the class. And so the odds are definitely against you, and you definitely want to stand out in any way possible. So going poultry science is a way to do that. There's not very many people who apply to vet school that are poultry science undergrad. Another one is a backup plan. So I don't even think of it as that it was necessarily a backup. I knew I wanted to go to vet school, but I know that I would have been just as happy in other poultry roles, from the nutritionist to maybe pharmaceuticals kind of development or research or something like that. So definitely having a backup plan for if you don't get into vet school, which that happens sometimes to some people, or if you change your mind, which can definitely happen too. The more you learn about poultry science and the industry, the more you may realize that there's another sector of the industry that you like better than the veterinary side. So again, I don't even see it as a backup plan for me because I would have been happy with any of them, but luckily the vet school kind of thing worked out for me, and here I am now. But a great reason to choose poultry science is there's kind of backup plans or other routes that you can go once you graduate. The other big one is networking and research. So there is a ton of graduate students from masters to PhDs that always have projects going on that they need help with. Sometimes there's mini projects that undergrads take on, or sometimes it even becomes a big project that undergrads take on. So there's always, like I said, hands-on experience. There's ability to do research. There's opportunities to speak at conferences and stuff, even as an undergrad, and that kind of like can build a network and play back into a backup plan. So if I didn't get into vet school, there would have been several options for me as far as job opportunities just from the people that I knew in the industry. But then also putting research on your resume to get into vet school is another great thing to add on, and kind of that standout thing, because most people are going into traditional veterinary roles and don't have a ton of research experience. So getting into vet school, there's not like a magic formula that I can tell you that will definitely get you in. Every single person kind of has a different formula that they used. But I think one thing is that I truly believe helped me was becoming comfortable and almost obsessed with the process of getting in. So constantly checking the website, making sure that you know the requirements to get in. That would be the most heartbreaking thing, to not get into vet school and have to postpone it for a year or decide not to go because of a formality, because you didn't take a speech class, or because you thought that they would accept a C and they only accept Bs or higher, or something like that. So just becoming comfortable, I'll leave it at that, with the process of getting in. Grades versus a well-rounded person. We all know that grades are super important, but they're not all that makes you up. So if you have a 4.0, that's awesome, but make sure that you also spend time in leadership roles. If you don't have a 4.0, don't be discouraged. You still have to have good grades, but you can make it up with your leadership roles and volunteering and research and all of those things. So they definitely want a good, well-rounded person to get into vet school. And as much as grades do matter, they also pay attention to other things. Something that you can do right now to help you get into vet school, there's all little nuances of getting in once you're in the final years of your undergrad, but something that you can start now is getting veterinary experiences. Typically, I think they say 100 hours is the minimum, but in reality, it needs to be 500 to 600 hours to be competitive to get in. So that's definitely something that you should start now. It'll free you up later in your undergraduate career to do poultry externships. If that's something that you're interested in, or you maybe not be interested in now, but you will be later. That's one thing that I'm sad I wasn't able to do more of. I spent a ton of time getting veterinary experiences to get that 600 hours, but my cost was that I wasn't able to do as many poultry externships. So get those done now, and then when you have other poultry opportunities later, you'll be able to take advantage of them. Traditional and non-traditional roles in your veterinary experience. Vet school is going to be, of course, more traditional. So you want to know that you can stick it out through that and have some basic skills on day one of vet school. So do traditional roles, learn basic things, learn to think, spend time with a veterinarian to learn to think like one, but then also do non-traditional ones, spending time with a poultry vet, spending time with research vets. Things like that can help with your resume and also just broaden your mindset about the kind of vet you want to be. So once you're accepted, so vet school is the most challenging and rewarding part of your formal education, hands down. Especially knowing that I wanted to be a poultry vet, I feel like it was maybe a little harder for me because we learned so little about poultry in vet school. So just like staying motivated. But as you can see, I had kind of a good time, maybe not with the snake necessarily, but I tried to have like a positive mindset, and I really enjoyed my veterinary education, even though it was very challenging. So heading towards a traditional role, poultry science is still good for that. We need more traditional veterinarians that deal with backyard birds and non-commercial birds, that understand diseases and how they spread, how to treat them, and education of the public. So commercial veterinarians cannot do their job if there's not normal vets doing their job with the backyard flocks. So we still need traditional veterinarians that understand commercial poultry production, and it's definitely still an option, even if you're a poultry science undergrad, to go into a traditional veterinary role. Whether that be mixed animal, small animal, whatever you want to do. Heading towards being a poultry vet, like I said, it can make vet school maybe a little harder just because it's not focused in poultry and it's easy to get discouraged. But learning how to think like a veterinarian, the art of being a veterinarian, those are things that they definitely teach you kind of in subtle ways. And in the end, after the 4 years, you realize that you do think a lot different than most people. And that's something that's super applicable to the poultry industry. So learning to think like a veterinarian, even when it's not diseases that you'll be directly dealing with every day. So, like I said before, I chose poultry science to stand out, not that I wanted to be a poultry vet, but then I started learning more about what they do. So post-veterinary school education is common. Normally from a year to 2 years is pretty standard for some of the clinical poultry ones. It's very intense poultry medicine, so they know that you're a veterinarian, you think like a veterinarian, you have the brain to be a veterinarian, but you may not have the poultry medicine knowledge and how to deal with diseases because it's so much different than traditional veterinarians. University of Georgia, that's where I currently am, working on my Master's of Avian Medicine. It's a 1.5-year long program, so it's not too long and totally worth the education that I'm getting before I go out and actually start treating millions of birds every single week. Mississippi State has a program. NC State is another program that's a little bit more turkey-based because they grow a lot of turkeys there. But these are kind of the main 3 clinical programs that does a lot of field work. There are some other programs that are more research and laboratory-based, and I can definitely talk to anyone who thinks that they might want to go down that role because we definitely need poultry veterinarians in those roles. I'll talk quickly about the 2 types of poultry veterinarians. There's production versus allied. Production vets actually work for the companies, make the decisions, they are the ultimate decision of the health of the birds. They are actually employees of like Sanderson, Tyson, Pilgrims. There's plenty of other ones as well. Those are just some of the main ones. And then allied vets are any vet that works for a company or consults for a company that doesn't directly own the birds. So if you're a vaccine company that focuses on a specific disease, if a production company thinks they have a problem with that disease, then you potentially would be called out or asked to come out to help them troubleshoot that problem. So they chase down all the problems, but they don't make the ultimate decision for the health of the birds. They work with those production vets to make recommendations. Generally, poultry jobs are more lucrative than traditional jobs. Definitely you can make good money as a traditional veterinarian, but some people are often taken aback by how low salaries can be for traditional vets, and that's not the case for poultry vets. You don't do it for the money. You have to be passionate about it. You have to be passionate about birds and poultry and commercial and population health and all of those things, but it is fairly lucrative if you decide to go that way. Population medicine, I think I'm super passionate about that, doing the greater good for the most number of birds. It's often a balancing act between nutrition and health and management of the birds, and I think that's awesome that you get to work with people who all have that common goal of feeding the world. And I'm super excited that I'm a poultry veterinarian and a graduate of poultry science. So I guess that kind of wraps it up for me. I hope that you choose to go poultry science, whether you want to be a veterinarian or not, whether you want to be a traditional veterinarian or not. We need more people who understand the industry, and we need more people in the industry if they want to be a part of it. So always reach out to me if you have any questions. Your advisors are great for any questions about getting into vet school and that kind of thing, but I'm always there to lend a hand if anyone needs me.